Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Katie Mitchell on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Texas, and, I'm jealous of that weather. I don't even care. I don't even care what the weather's like. I mean, it's better than it is up here, but, you just have to deal with it. But she's an IFBB fitness pro. She's coming on to share her health and fitness journey, and we're here to talk about, all things health and fitness with her, as well as the coronavirus pandemic, which is currently happening as we are recording this podcast. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Katie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask, first of all, what's the weather like in Texas?
Yeah, the obligatory question,
Yep.
right? Waco is, I am very sorry. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. It's beautiful today, but we were hot, humid, steamy the last couple days. We got a cold front, so we're actually in the 60s, low 70s today, which is that is a relief for us. It gets way too hot here in the summer. Too hot for me. Do you have snow, Ryan?
It snowed yesterday. But it was like half an inch, but luckily it melted because it's 40 degrees now. But I mean, 40 degrees up here, that's streaking weather this time of the year, basically, because it gets to a point where your body just gets so used to the cold that the first time it's above freezing, you can just smell everything again, and it's just like everything just becomes so magical. But yeah, it's still that's 70 degrees. Yeah, absolutely. And the moment that I heard that you're from Waco, so this is interesting because I'm in Bloomington, which is famous for the Mall of America. That's the one staple that we have, where it's the largest mall in the country. Waco is famous for a different thing that happened that, so I always wondered, what's that like being from a place? Cause I have firsthand experience. What's that like being from a place where when you mention it, everyone always has to ask that question?
Yes. So they ask actually a couple things now. First, it's always David Koresh,
Yep.
Colts, what happened there? And that is a crazy story. And if you don't know that story, because some people may not, it happened kind of a long time ago.
There are so many documentaries on it that I highly recommend people watch that. Yeah.
And it's very interesting. So you got to watch it. But yeah, that was kind of a bad mark on the Waco area. And true Wacoans, I'm actually from Maryland and went to college in Wisconsin, but I've been in Waco for about 13 years now. True Wacoans will tell you that didn't happen exactly in Waco. It was right outside of Waco. So I have to put that in there.
Oh yeah, that's true. And if anyone watches it, yeah, he was miles out. There was no one within miles. So yeah, I mean, hey, I would say that too as well. But I always just find that interesting. People that are from or living in current places that might be associated with stuff that they might not want it to be associated with. I mean, just even with me, I'm from Bloomington. Oh, you ever been to the Mall of America? And it's like,
really? Thankfully, though, Waco has a good mark on it now, because I don't know if you've ever watched The Fixer Upper.
Oh, yep.
Chip and Joanna Gaines. Yep. So that started here in Waco, and we've got the Magnolia Silos. We have tons of tourists, and people are, moving from California to Waco because of it. We're kind of amazed, going, why do you want to come to Waco? It's so small. But so that does have a good mark now.
And that's totally awesome. But why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory and what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and how that led to you? I mean, I know through your journey, I mean, you're basically the triple threat where you've done CrossFit, you've done powerlifting, and now you're doing bodybuilding. What inspired you to get into those?
Yep. So as far as back as I can remember, I've been an athlete. So I started gymnastics when I was about 3 years old, and did that through high school and college, and also ran track in high school and college. So I always had an athletic background. Once I graduated, you kind of go, well, now what? What do I do now? So, there was a 5K here, a 5K there, and I just kind of stayed in shape that way, and then found CrossFit. And that was in my late 20s. Started that, and that's got a competitive background to, or a competitive aspect to it. So kind of lit that competitive fire again. Did that for about 8 years, and then a little bit of Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting with that. So I was building muscle, continuing to compete through those years. And it was 2 years ago that, I don't know, I was kind of burnt out. I'd been doing CrossFit, powerlifting, weightlifting, and, I just need a change, need something different. And I actually went with my boyfriend, Jason. We went to the Arnold. So this was 2 years ago exactly now. And just to take it all in, I mean, they have everything that you can imagine at the Arnold, right? So we got to see all the sports, and we went to the bodybuilding finals. And I hate to say this, but that was actually my first bodybuilding competition I had ever been to. And we happened to see the fitness finals. So I saw the girls up there. I saw that they had a gymnastics background, but also had posing and were judged on their figure too. And I thought, gosh, I kind of want to tap into my gymnastics a little bit more. And at the time, see, I'm 38 now. So at the time I was 36. I was thinking, can I still do that? I'm not sure. But and found a coach and started training for bodybuilding at that point.
38 years old and she doesn't look a day over 25. I mean, I always say that's the one benefit of working out, everyone. If you're looking for one, especially for women, I always say, yeah, I've had guests on here that are 50 and they don't look a day over 30. So if that wants to serve you as enough motivation, or if that doesn't serve as enough motivation for you, I mean, you need to get checked up on something, because yeah, it's just incredible what it does for the body. But a question that I ask all of my health and fitness guests is, if you were to walk into that gym and there's 100 people in that gym, there's 100 different ways as to how those people have gotten into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. And I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you. What was that like for you, sort of figuring out what works best for your body? Because it's just so much trial and error in this lifestyle.
So much trial and error. So when I first entered the world of bodybuilding, and we really had to start working on proportions, right, and making sure lines were improving, and proportions were improving, and I didn't understand that. I was coming from CrossFit and powerlifting. I thought, I've got muscle. Well, I was quad dominant, glute dominant, not much upper body. So we really had to emphasize upper body work versus lower body work. And thankfully I had a coach that helped me with that. But, you're right. What works for one person isn't going to work for another person. For me, I know that my upper body does not like to hold mass very well, or as much as my lower body. So I have to work my upper body, specifically my shoulders, more than some other body parts like my legs. And that just took trial and error, trying to figure that out.
Which is funny, because if you look at it now, her shoulders are the one thing that's basically popping out of the screen, basically. So you'd think that that's the easiest thing, but yeah, that's why I love asking that, because so many times people don't realize that, and that leads me perfectly into my next question, where I love talk about genetics, just because in this day and age, people don't understand, especially with social media, where they look at someone's post on Instagram, oh, I want her arms, or I want his abs, or I want their back, and they don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. We live in such an age where people just want everyone else's stuff, and they want it now, and especially with the millennial generation, where it's like, give it to me now and give it to me yesterday, basically, where they don't realize how much time and trial and error really occurs in this. But whenever someone gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, and then they always have that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to train into oblivion to get it to catch up to everything else. I'll give you my examples first. My back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses and lifting and loading packages into trucks, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the two options that were presented to you. But I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot, where I have to train them into oblivion just to get them to look like any semblance like I've ever worked out a day in my life. Calves, I always say I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. It's ridiculous.
That's a hard one to train overall, because we're using our calves all the time, so you really got to overload them.
Absolutely. And then I always say, even if I walk into the gym today, I'll have friends. Well, I'm not going to walk into the gym today. When the pandemic dies down and the gyms open up, I'll walk in there and I'll have friends that'll be like, oh, hey Ryan, did you plan on training legs anytime this year? And it's like, dude, you saw me train them yesterday. Come on. So they like to have fun with me on that. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
It was shoulders, my delts. That's what we really needed to bring up and try to, get them to cap out more, especially more. My legs were so quad dominant that we would still train them, of course. You can't just stop training things, but the training was different. So it was very high volume, very high repetition when it came to my lower body. My upper body, my delts specifically, was the first thing that we really wanted to work on, bringing some of the size up, were lower reps, 15 to 20 range, and much heavier weight. Go to failure. And we would work them twice a week too. So we would work them twice a week. Those finally, the proportions really kind of started to work in our favor after a while. And now working on trying to get my lower lats up a little bit more.
Well, and I always say too, you're like a mad scientist who's trying to concoct your own potion, where it takes so many times. And, like the famous thing was with the guy who tried to invent the light bulb. He tried, thousands of times, and they asked him, how do you feel about that? It took you that long? He's like, I didn't fail. I found 1,000 different ways on how to not make a light bulb, basically.
That's
so,
right.
It's a time process that is hard for a lot of people to understand. But one thing that I preach so much on this podcast, and we talked about it briefly before we started recording, and I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still, unfortunately, so many women that have that fear where if they walk into the gym, they pick up one dumbbell. It can even be like a 3 pound dumbbell, and they still have this belief where they're just going to gain 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And first of all, I'd pay my entire life savings just to talk to you then. I would probably kidnap you and force you to teach me your ways then until, but it's just
Yeah,
so
they'd have
not
the
true.
magic potion or the
Oh,
magic pill or answer, whatever it is.
yeah.
You pay,
And again, if you have that, I
yeah,
want it really badly and I'm willing to pay my entire life savings for
you'll
that. But
pay high dollar.
yeah, yeah. Did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time today. How do you like to respond to that?
So I have been to help with that myth. I've been training basically my entire life because, of course, starting out as a young gymnast, we're not really lifting weights, but eventually, high school and college, you get into a weight room, and then CrossFit, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting. I'm lifting a ton, and I never got any bigger than I am now. And even now, so just overloading muscles. I'm still very feminine, I think.
Absolutely.
Didn't really ever have that fear, but before I really got to know the world of bodybuilding, I only had kind of one picture in my mind of what a bodybuilder looks like, and they do have more muscle than what I have right now. But then when I went to a bodybuilding show and subsequently have been to a lot more bodybuilding shows, you learn there's so many divisions, there's several different divisions that are going to fit different body types that women have. A lot of women are more muscular naturally than other women. It just depends on genetics too. And so it's wonderful that they have so many different divisions now that women can get into and be successful in and have something to strive for. But just going into the gym, picking up weights, when you're even doing small sets, small number sets or low reps with heavy weight, you're not going to bulk up like a man unless, you're taking all kinds of crazy stuff. So you don't have to have that fear.
Yeah, I mean, and it also helps having that gymnastic background because I used to have a former girlfriend who was a gymnast too, and every time we'd go and work out together, she'd do more pull-ups than me, and I always told her I was like, if you do more than me, you're walking home basically because I just can't deal with that. She'd do like twice as much as me just because that's a huge background. And do you think that having that background has really helped you transition? Because I mean, you look at some gymnasts and they look like they're some of the most in shape people on the planet.
Oh, you're not kidding. Yep, you aren't kidding. I wish I found this sport, specifically the fitness division, especially because we've got to use all of that gymnastics. And some of the girls, many of the girls, don't necessarily have a gymnastics background. Even pros in my division, they have cheerleading or maybe even self-taught gymnastics, which I am just amazed at. So any fitness girls that are listening, if you are self-taught, like I bow down. That's amazing. So I rely a lot on that specifically for my division, but just, athletically, I know the world of weightlifting. I'm familiar with being in a weight room. So that's helped out too, being comfortable going into a weight room and knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that background is, I mean, just so important. But one thing that is not really talked about, but I always say it's a positive thing of working out that I think affects women so much more than it does men is that confidence boost that working out gives you. We have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of, women who have made life-changing decisions. It's maybe helped them be more assertive or just help them better their everyday life. How has working out helped you to better your life? And how has that taking that confidence boost really helped you impact your life?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's so obvious that that confidence boost has impacted my life in a positive way. And even just biologically, we know when you're working out, whether it's going for a run or a walk or lifting weights or Zumba, whatever your exercise choice is, it gets your endorphins going. So that's going those happy chemicals in your body. So you're going to have that immediate confidence boost. But when you start to see changes in your body, just knowing that I'm going into the gym and being consistent with my program, I'm able to manipulate the way my body looks, the amount of weight and I can lift in the gym and outside of the gym. Jason has 3 boys and they are 10, 13, and 15. So let me tell you, keeping up with them, this helps with that. That's a big deal to me. I want to be healthy for my family and I want to be able to keep up with kids and then down the road, grandkids. That it transitions into the greater, scheme of life.
Well, and plus, if I was 10 years old and I had a mom that looked like you, if she told me to go and like vacuum the room, I'd be like, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. I'd be like, yes, ma'am, right on it. Not even a drop of
Well,
hair. So that,
I can't take full credit. They're biologically not mine. They're Jason's kiddos, but but they're awesome. We have so much
And,
fun.
and and that and that is so great. And a question that I love to ask as well, because this is a training technique that I was familiar with before I started the podcast. I did it a little bit, but not as much. But after so many people recommended it to me, I use it now, and it's gotten me some really good results. Is time under tension? Do you like to use a lot of time under tension in your training?
Well, we have, yes. And honestly, that's just coming from super high volume sets. So I'm a high rep girl, especially for lower body. And by high rep, I mean there's sets where it's a minimum of 50 in a set, sometimes 100 leg press. And so you're doesn't mean you're going super heavy at that time, right? So you would have to lower the weight quite a bit. But I'm a high rep gal. That seems to be what works really, really well, especially for my lower body specifically. And like we've said earlier, every person's different. So if you see one person posting training programs, they're probably very awesome training programs, but just know it's not going to necessarily do exactly the same thing to your body. But it's great to have options and try different things and experiment. It's really the only way you learn in this sport.
I always think like a really fun study that they could do is they could get like 100 people in a gym, like I was saying, and have them train the same exact way and then see the changes that would happen and like control their food and stuff like that. But just to show people that, I mean, yeah, like you're talking about, it is so different for people. And that's one thing that I love to preach on this podcast too, is like, yeah, you see these people post these, nutrition plans, and it's like, just know that is what works for them, and they're completely different. Like if you're, like a 5'2" female posting on this, and you're like me, like a 6'3" guy, that probably won't work as good for. That
Probably
probably won't
not.
work as good
Yeah.
for you. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
so
the
much
other
better.
thing to take into consideration too is age. So, that's going to impact recovery. So you need to know that too. Time under tension or doing high rep sets. You need to know about recovery and what works best for your body before you really go after it again with that body part if you're isolation training.
Yeah, that recovery. I mean, I remember when I was 18 working, loading those boxes, I could work, 50 hours straight, but now, it's like it's slowly starting to catch up with me, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to delay it as much as I can. But I mean, so many things aren't talked about when it comes to this lifestyle, but the number one thing I think is the nutritional aspect. I mean, that's 80 to 90% overall of what your results are going to happen, or what your results are going to look like, I should say. What would you say are probably some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first got into the bodybuilding aspect of your journey?
Gosh, it was an overhaul. I mean, almost a 180. So you hit the nail on the head. I 100% agree that nutrition is 80, 90%, maybe even more. Of course, you're working hard in the gym, but if when you're in at least the sport of bodybuilding, when you have to prep and that attention to detail, nutrition has to be on point. Before I started training, I was crossfitting and powerlifting, and I wouldn't say that I just ate junk all the time, but I never tracked anything. I didn't track macros. I didn't write down what I was eating. I didn't look at calories that I was eating. I ate when I was hungry, and I loved Chipotle. I loved pizza. I liked frozen yogurt. I just didn't really pay attention to it very much. But I was really active, so I wasn't seeing any kind of weight gain. So then I start bodybuilding, right? Start training, and I have to start cutting for a contest. Well, everything had to change. So I had to track everything. So that was the first thing I learned, was tracking what you're eating and staying on point with that is so, so helpful. So if you've got a goal, write it down and keep track of what you're doing every single day. That's going to hold you or keep you on track and hold you accountable. Um, and then just the types of food I was eating, the processed foods, kind of went out the window. Of course, I get, a cheat meal a week when I'm not in hardcore prep time. So I really love those. But other than that, it is oatmeal, egg whites, rice, white or brown, sometimes chicken, sweet potato, regular potatoes. It's a lot cleaner, and that was a huge adjustment for me. Mhm.
Yeah, rice was basically my whole entire diet during college, just because the poor college student. But that's a great one too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Rice, beans, and ramen noodles in college. That was a big
Oh my god.
11 cents a package. I
Yeah,
remember that.
I had a roommate that wouldn't even cook them; he just eat them raw. And I was like, what are you doing? But hey, whatever it works for you. But I'm one of those weird guys where I would eat them plain. I would just heat them up, and then I would just eat the noodle part. Where they're like, oh, you can add flavors to them, and I was like, it's fine. It's fine the way it is. I'm just eating this just to maintain mass anyway, so it's you might as well. But and if anyone has any other questions, for the nutrition aspect, she posted a great video on her Instagram that I'll leave a link to her Instagram down below that everyone should check out about, especially during this coronavirus, on ways that you can, still maintain your diet and ways that you can still maintain your health. And we'll talk about that briefly in a little bit, but there's also, she has a great video on it that I highly recommend everyone go and check that out. But going back to bodybuilding, the number one thing I just didn't understand before I started this podcast that really, shocked me was that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Oh gosh, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I just thought I was the only one that was really nervous and awkward when I was posing. So I've been a tomboy kind of my whole life and in athletics my whole life. If I don't ever have to wear heels, I don't want to wear heels. Okay. If I can wear yoga pants all the time, that's what I want to do. So wearing heels, number one, was the first thing I had to get used to. And so that was different. And I literally just started out by walking in my posing heels around the house. Just walk. Don't even worry about what your posing routine is. But just to get back to your question, posing so important. I've learned that you can have the physique. It can all be there. It can be dialed in and you can be ready to go. But if your posing isn't on point, that's going to make a huge difference how you look on stage and what the judges see. It's about presenting yourself. So you've got to not only be comfortable, you need to show confidence when you're out there posing. Practice, practice, practice. As much as you're in that weight room for fitness, as much as we practice our fitness routines, we're practicing our posing routines too. So I practice that for, every single day for a while. And it's painful. I'll tell you that right now. Don't think that it's easy posing when you're practicing, when you're up there on stage. You are quivering and it hurts. You're going to be sore.
I always say the one phrase that I could really use to describe bodybuilding when it comes to the competing aspect is fake it till you make it. Especially with posing, where it's like, yeah, they may have a smile on, but you don't realize that the body is not meant to be in that flexed of a state for that long of a period of time. It's
Right.
just, that's one thing that I didn't realize too, is that a lot of these competitors, after their posing sessions, they're more sore than they ever were even during their workouts, just because
Yeah.
it's not something that the body is used to. But yeah, those high heels, I always say, it's like, don't these competitors go through enough already without those high heels? It's like, come on. So I always have like a checklist of like what bodybuilders have to go through. And that's one of the big ones, especially for females. If you're not a physique competitor or bodybuilder, yeah, you have to suffer with those heels. But out of your poses that you do, what is your favorite pose to do? And what is your least favorite pose to do?
Gosh. Okay. Mm. My favorite, and I don't know how, it doesn't really, I don't even think it has a specific name, but is probably just the end of my like introduction posing. So when we do our walkouts or our model poses, I really like my ending pose. I'm very comfortable in that and feel like it shows a lot of my physique in a really positive way. And that's really the kind of the point of your intro walks or your model walks, is to pick what looks really good on you. And I actually heard really great advice from Sandy Williamson, who's a head Olympia judge. She said, the longer that you're out there doing those, the more time you're giving the judges to see flaws. So keep that in mind. You want to do enough, but don't feel like you need to overdo it too. So I always keep that in mind. And I do like my front pose. That's a strong one for me. My back pose, I like it. It's just difficult for me. It's one that, I'm 2 years into this whole posing thing. So I'm still kind of finessing that and learning how to tweak little things here and there.
Well, I always say if I ever competed, the back would just be my favorite, just on the sole fact that I could put my smile down a little bit. I don't have to have that smile, which that's another thing too that is never talked about, is that after these competitions, your jaw muscles might be the most sore thing on you, just because you have to maintain that. We had a guest from Australia come on. She talked about how she accidentally let her smile down for like a minute or so during the transitions, and she got docked points off for that. So that's definitely it's not something that's not talked about, but Now, as a fun thing, as you can tell, I'm one of the palest people that you ever meet in your entire life. I think we're the pale skin club. I mean, we're both
Yeah,
members.
you
We're
can
both
have
members
that
of it, unfortunately.
in the north. Yeah, that's not your fault.
Oh my, well, yeah. I mean, like if you get sunlight out here, for more than basically a month's worth every year. I mean, but also it's my thick Norwegian skin where I mean, I
Yeah.
basically it's just my sun does not go well when it's very very bright sunlight. But I always say so. I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get farmer's tan, where let's be honest, that's not a real tan, or I just get burnt to an absolute crisp. But bodybuilders get tan, and I've never had that experience before. I mean, I know the experience of applying it, and that was probably the most shocking thing that I ever learned on this podcast. But what was that feeling like for you when you got that tan on? You just realized, you're basically a completely different person, and what is that feeling like for you when you get that on?
Yeah, so literally, the feeling is it's very freezing cold. So I will say, just a literal sense, it's one thing I don't look forward to because you're so depleted. You've got no body fat on. There's really no mechanism to keep your body warm. So you're freezing and shivering. At least I am. But once you're tanned, it's all dry, you've got all of those coats on you, and you go to a mirror and you see kind of everything that you've built, the package that you're about to bring to the stage. And especially when you start to carve up a little bit and you see those muscles fill out, it's like a switch in your brain. You get this confidence switch and you go, okay, here we go. Now I'm ready. So for me, I don't really feel ready. I'm super nervous. I've got butterflies until that moment when I really see everything in front of me.
Yeah, it's a weird experience where I always say you got to be like your own, basically a statue where you can't sit on anything, you can't touch anything, and we
Oh
have
yeah, that's
competitors that
awkward.
bring their own bed sheets and
The
stuff.
bathroom situation is awkward.
Oh yeah, we've heard plenty of that. Yeah, it's definitely a different experience for a lot of people, and again, that just adds on to the checklist of what these competitors have to go through. But a question that I ask all my guests, whether they be my up and coming bands or my bodybuilders, for my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and perform live in front of hundreds to thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders. What is that feeling like for you personally when you get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
Initially, because I only started this 2 years ago. So at first, I was extremely nervous because I hadn't done anything like that before. When you're competing in CrossFit or powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, there's crowds and you might be out there solo, but it's different. You're not up on this platform stage with lights on you and a judging panel in front of you and a huge crowd. So I was really nervous at first, but once you are tanned and you are bronzed, you look like a statue or a trophy almost. Your hair's done, your makeup's done. You really do get that boost of confidence. And I just remember that right before my name is called and right before I walk out on stage, I get my shoulders back, I put my head up, I've got that smile on, and it is time. These are your only moments to show those judges in that crowd what you have built. You've worked way too hard for way too long to not give it everything you've got on that stage. And so I really try to remember that. And now I actually look forward to that. Every day in the gym, I know I'm going to get to show these judges in that crowd what I've done. And so it helps motivate you along the way. And then you just get a surge of motivation knowing I've done so much work and I am ready to show them what I've done.
And again, that's just must be such a great feeling. And I always say to people, find that one thing in your life that makes you feel, just so accomplished and like you've done such a great job. And I think bodybuilding for so many people is that. But one of my favorite questions to ask is, I mean, you have your pro card, and for anyone on the show that has their pro card, I always love to ask them, what is that? What was that experience like when they announce your name and you realize, oh my God, I'm a pro now? Because for anyone out there who's not familiar, for a lot of these guests, winning their pro card is the highlight of their career, just because that's the affirmation that all of this time that they've spent working out. Now, granted, some of these people are the ones that won it at their first show, and they're the anomaly where I'm just like, okay, that's just come on now. But I mean, it's just so much of the hard work and dedication. But what was that feeling like when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
It was great, unreal actually, because it was unexpected. I would have never ever expected that. The girls that were at the national show that I was at, which was in Pittsburgh, um, just so much talent, and with the fitness division, we've got such a tight sisterhood that we were all rooting for each other backstage. I mean, we would watch everybody's routine, cheer for them, high five each other. So no matter who won or got their pro card, we were just so happy to even be there. But when I won my division, And then Abby Elsner won overall. So both of us got our pro card at that show. And it was just so awesome to both be up there. And even before they announced the overall winner, Sandy said they're both getting their pro card. And I just wanted to melt. So it was unreal.
And I can't imagine what that feeling must be like. But one of the fun questions also that I love to ask is, what is your go-to post-show meal that you have after a show?
Oh, um, cheeseburger and fries. Yep.
Any place in particular?
If usually the shows are in different states, so not sure, just any really good, greasy, juicy cheeseburger and fries. But another go-to is pizza. So that's a tough one, specifically with pepperonis and mushrooms. So I love that. We have a really great place here in Waco called Rosati's. They've got awesome pizza, local place. But pizza and burgers, those are kind of my two that I flip flop.
I mean, I always said if I ever competed, I would just rent out a Five Guys and just walk in there and say,
Yeah,
here's $1,000. I'm buying you out for the night. Feed me until I either die, pass out, or throw up.
I,
Either way, I'm going to get my money's worth. But yeah,
yes, you do. And then always have to have dessert too. So anything chocolatey is what I'm going for.
yeah. And that also brings me into one of the other myths that I love to bust. And you actually had a post about it, a few days ago that I really enjoyed, where you're talking about. I mean, one of the biggest things that I deal with on here is that people don't realize that look that you put on stage is not a sustainable look. A lot of people in the general public, they see shows like Biggest Loser where people go on and they lose, a vast amount of weight, and sometimes they're able to keep that weight off, and they just assume, oh, I mean, bodybuilders, they work just as hard and they have that great look. They must be able to look like that year round, but that is not the case. What was that experience like for you, and how have you adjusted to that? Has it gotten easier for you as your career has gone on to just accept the fact that, hey, this look that I present on stage, that's the best I'm going to look for a while?
Yeah, yeah. Initially, that was something different for me to get used to because, I jumped right into training. And when I started training, I did my first amateur show about 16 weeks after that. So we really started prepping. So I started to see progress, fat loss, muscles coming out pretty much right away. And so you start to think, oh, this is great. This is what I'm going to look like, and then contest day comes and you're up on the stage. And even the day after a contest, once you get tons of carbs in you, you look really awesome. That next morning, your muscles are popping. But yeah, then you start to put some fat back on, and you have to. And so what I've learned over the last couple years and the last few contests is that you have to do that. Number one, for your health. I mean, it is not healthy to sustain that extreme depleted state. And it's not healthy physically, nor is it healthy emotionally. So you need to put that mass back on. And there's a process to do that. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't want to rebound and gain all of this weight back in a week or two. You're doing it methodically and in a healthy manner. But in order to grow, so if you want to make changes, if judges' feedback say you need to bring your delts up or you need to bring your lats up or whatever it is that you need to change, typically it's going to mean trying to grow a little bit more muscle. So you got to eat. You can't stay in that depleted state. You'll just waste away. So it was something I had to get used to. So I learned that, there's a purpose in each season. And so purpose in this season is to grow a little bit. So I'm not as lean as I was 5 weeks ago at the Arnold.
Well, and I always say too, it's just like starting your own business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, unfortunately, those two go hand in hand. And we've heard so many bad stories on this podcast of, people who, like you said, they might, try to maintain this for a little bit longer. They might try to go year round. And it's like, it can destroy your health and just the effects that it has, because people don't realize that when you're walking up on that stage, you're actually at your weakest. You're not at your strongest. And I always said it would be so funny if they had like a push-up contest or a pull-up contest or something like that on the stage. People would be shocked at the results. They'd be like, "Oh my God, I can do more than some of those people up there." Where it's just, you're not at your healthiest. So that's one thing that I love to portray, because so many times there's that example where like people see ripped people on the beach or whatever, and they don't realize that guy, he might only be looking that for like that for a few days, where it's just like your body is going to fluctuate. You're not going to be able to look like that all the time.
Right. All the time you're going to fluctuate, and that's okay. So I wanted to put that post out there, the one you were talking about, because I get that comment a lot, specifically from women. They'll say, "Oh, I want your abs," and they'll be looking at my contest pictures. And I'm going, "Yeah, me too." But I don't have those year round. There is just no way personally I could sustain it. So I just wanted to put my reality out there, which was that actually my abs don't look like that majority of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had probably like one or two of them on the podcast where they were able to keep it year round, and that's just because they were genetic freaks. I mean, one of them I said, "There's no way that you just are able to do that just by doing it." And then luckily she had a photo of her when she was like 8 years old, and she had like an 8-pack, and I was like, okay, I was like, get off my podcast. This is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't want to talk to you anymore. But yeah, there are those rare people, but they're like 0.001%. Like I have a friend too who he can eat 10 Snickers bars a day, and he's never gonna gain an ounce, or he hasn't so far. But I just hope that God's playing a really bad trick on him. I was like, I hope one day he wakes up and he's just like 60 pounds overweight. That would make my life.
Yeah, it
Because
could
yeah, but
change
he's
later in life. Yeah, and there's
hopefully.
definitely I've seen competitors that they're able to stay really lean pretty much year round. I just know personally that's just not my reality.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, and I even have my dad even has a friend who my dad's about 60 and the guy's probably like 61, and he still to this day could have 10 milkshakes a day, and he has like 5% body fat. He never is, and he works out rarely. Like he'll work out like once a week, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Where I mean, I've told him many times, I was like, you don't realize the lottery ticket that you were given when you were born, basically. But
Yeah, lucky duck. Let me have some of that.
I even told him I even said I was like, I'm not even gonna take advice from you because I know that you're just pure luck. Basically, it's like no, come on. But yeah, it's one thing that is it's just not talked about, and a lot of people see those genetic freaks and they just assume that you're gonna be just like them. Where it's like, no, they just happen to be a little bit more blessed than you. So that's a message that I love to get out there. But two more questions before we get to the coronavirus pandemic and talk about that. I mean, I always say that there are so many positive things that happened to me when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars of bottled water, anything that's sealed on tight. You're the go-to strength person. I'm still at home for the next couple of months before I move out. And, every time my parents come home with groceries, being the good son that I am, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carrying the groceries for them. Have you found that to be a similar experience where as you've gotten into this journey where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
Yeah. Yeah, I get asked a lot of favors, lifting, help me move or do this or do that, or oh, Katie can open it, and then it's embarrassing if I can't open the pickle jar, right?
Then you basically just have to amp yourself up to like your powerlifting level, like right before a lift. Then basically, yeah, yeah.
And you get questions everywhere you go. So grocery store checkout, people say, "Do you work out?" So you get a lot of
You just say
questions.
no. Just say no. I don't. No.
Wanted to just say
Yeah.
it's blessed,
I, well, and that's another thing too. It's like, yeah, looking the way that you look, you could not go sleeveless at a grocery store and knock it out. And that's you become like a mini celebrity. And how has that been like adjusting to that? Because I mean, for some people, it can be a lot for them to be the center of attention almost everywhere that they go. And some other people they enjoy it. But what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's Texas, so it's pretty much hot year round, but especially in the summertime. So I am in a tank top a lot. But I'm not gonna lie, there's been times where I purposefully put a t-shirt on going places just because you do get asked questions a lot and not bad questions, or people don't, necessarily oogle or say, "Oh, you look manly." It's not that kind of stuff at all. But we'll get questions and they're loaded questions like, "How do I get your arms?" And I'm like, wow, that's a loaded question because I could talk to you for an hour about that, So it's just people will ask questions and it's hard to give them full answers in short periods of time, especially when they're strangers. So,
Absolutely. Well, and I don't know if you're like a mind reader because you read my next question perfectly. Because I did a poll right before New Year's and I said, "What's one body part that you want me to ask their guests? How they got to look the way they are?" And I had arms, abs, back, and legs. And arms won by like 15%. So I got to ask, every guest, what do you train for your arms? And do you like to mix things up? And what does your training look like for your arms?
yep. So well, I do chest, triceps, and biceps once a week. Shoulders right now just once a week, but sometimes just depending on what I'm looking like and where we are in prep, I take progress pictures every week. We may up that to twice a week. So specifically for shoulders, because I think that's what people mean when they're saying, "Hey, arms," I do tons of overhead pressing, lots of side raises, and as heavy as you can. Do that. And of course, a mix of other exercises too. But those are the two that I have found have really helped build up that delt size for me. Are overhead pressing and side raises, and then also anything to get your rear delts. So that could be bent over rear delts, or even using the pec deck machine or the pec fly machine, but use it for a rear fly. That's really helpful to build up rear delts, which can actually add to what the size looks like, especially on stage. So you've got your, front, you got anterior delt, you got middle, and you've got posterior. If you can build your posterior delts up, that's going to help your size on stage too. So
Well, and I say especially for arms too, your triceps. That's the number one thing that people don't realize, that that adds so much to the look. Where I mean, you can have great triceps and you can have crappy biceps, and your arms will still look great. So that's one thing that
because it
I
really adds the separation. If
mhm.
you have a built up tricep, you're going to see the separation between your delt and your tricep, and that is going to help on stage. So it's all
Yeah,
proportion,
absolutely. Yeah,
illusion.
absolutely. And what do you do for biceps? I mean, we can see your veins are basically popping out of the camera. Basically,
Oh,
what do you
I'm
train for your
very
biceps?
vascular.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I was genetically blessed with, was great vascularity. Anytime and this has been my whole life, going to the doctor, if I've had surgeries, first thing they say is, "Oh, wow, this is great. I can take my pick of veins." So I'm just very naturally vascular like that. But biceps, tons of curls. I mean, just hammer curls into alternating regular bicep curls, and pick up the easy bar curls. Curls, curls, curls. Over
I
and
mean,
over.
yeah, there's really no better way to do it. I mean, that's the one thing that I love that people chose arms, because I was like, yeah, curls. That's basically that's basically the answer. I mean, that's short and
Girls.
sweet, but yeah.
And if you're not seeing results, so if you're trying to build up a body part and you're not seeing results, what I learned is that a lot of people will typically say, okay, I need to build my biceps. Let me do 3 sets of 15 curls. And that's all you do. Well, I'm doing, several sets of different types of curls. So you hit them more then, if they're not building. Hmm.
Like I said, it's trial and I always said I'm just going to rename this podcast Trial and Error, basically, because that's really that's the one thing that's really talked about. But yeah, if there's one thing that I could preach the most, but I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and I this is just such an interesting time to be alive, because I mean, even talking to my parents and my grandpa, it's like, have you ever lived through anything like this? And no, it's not even, no one's ever lived through anything like this. It's really alive, unless you're like 110 years old. But it's so just surreal. And how have you been dealing with this pandemic, not just physically but mentally, because so many times we're not talking about the mental health aspect, where you're not meant to be cooped up in a house for this long period of time, and people are having difficulties. But how have you adjusted to this pandemic? Because I mean, until May 4th is probably when it's going to be, at least here, and who knows, it might even be even longer than that. So we are going to have to hunker down for the next, at least 3 weeks or so.
Oh, at least that, and it might even be longer, sadly. But it's kind of what we've got to do to help, just take precautions and keep everyone safe out there. So, I don't mind doing it because we need to do it, and it's going to help everybody out. But it certainly is difficult. I think we would both agree, and anybody listening, because I think you guys are probably all into fitness just as much as we are. You get antsy. I mean, we're cooped up and we are getting antsy. The kids are getting antsy. So thankfully, in Texas, we are able to get outside a lot more. So that's what we've been trying to do to stay mentally sane with all of this, is get a little bit of sunshine. But the cold weather states, like where you are, Ryan, that's more difficult to do. But even if you could just get like 20 minutes of sunshine somehow, it could be helpful. It's so hard, I know. But we've just been trying to get outside as much as we can, or not be glued to technology the whole day, or TV the whole day. Trying to get into a little bit of maybe watching a series on Netflix or something like that. But we don't want to do that all the time.
I
So
mean, the only use that I have for my technology during the winter is that my phone keeps me warm a little bit when I put it in my pocket, and it's really
yeah,
warm
that's
from
right.
you. That's the only really main use for that, people. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's I for me, I've actually taken this time to sort of get a break from my routine, where I'm taking things a little bit slower now, just because I was, going balls to the wall basically for the
Yeah.
longest time, where I was like, okay, this is my time, instead of working out, 5, 6 days a week, put it down to maybe 3 or 4, and then, just go for walks at night, which sounds good on paper, but at night when it's 15 degrees, you're going to have to bundle up a little bit. But
Yeah. Our dog is loving this. He is like, this is the greatest thing on
oh,
earth. You guys
oh
are all
yeah, our
home all
dog too is like, oh
day.
my god, my humans really love me now, and they're just spending all this time. She's getting like 3 walks a day. I shouldn't even say walks, because she's right outside, so her head's probably gonna get all. She's probably gonna get all excited now. But yeah, we got a little Cavachon who is about that big, but she thinks that she's the toughest thing on the planet, and until she runs into that Saint Bernard that we have living up the street. I mean, then she just rolls over and submits. She knows the fight's over before it began. But yeah, I mean, she is loving it, and I think the animals are loving it too. But how are you staying in shape? Because for so many people, I mean, I'd say the vast majority, or even maybe even like 90% of people, don't have access to a gym, or not even to a gym, but like to a place that they can work out at. I mean, I'm one of those lucky few where I have a treadmill and I have some dumbbells in the basement, along with a bench. But so excuse me, so I can maintain. But a lot of people aren't blessed with that. But how have you specifically been able to, keep this lifestyle? Because I know right before this started, I mean, you were just getting done with the show.
Yes. So I had just finished with the Arnold. So it was kind of nice because I was coming down from the Arnold. I needed to take a break anyways. So there was a period of rest and a period of time where training wasn't going to be as intense. So walks, just lifting here and there. We have some dumbbells and a barbell and some plates, but not a lot. But we have enough to try to make do. And then we have an elliptical also. So that was great. But now it's time to really buckle down because Olympia is coming up, at least as far as we know. We haven't heard anything different. That'll be in September. So that's what we're training for now. And it's tough. I'll tell you that. It's tough. It's tough to get the motivation to say, all right, it's time to work out here at home. I like going to a gym. I like having a place where I go and train. It's just more motivating for me to go and get it done. So that's hard first, but then you just don't have access to everything. We don't have a really great home gym here, and that you make the best out of what you can with what you have.
Well, and at least you have the youngest boy you can always use as a weight too. I mean, if you ever get
Yes,
bored,
right.
that's the one positive I think we can take out of having kids during this is, I mean, they're free weight. If they're young enough, they can use them as free weights. But yeah, it's a trying time for people, and I always tell people, especially in this time, you're not going to put on muscle unless you have like one of those like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dwayne the Rock Johnson gyms at your house. You're not going to. It's all about just maintaining and hey, we are going to get through this, and it's gonna, it may suck, especially going back. I mean, I have friends that are just like, oh, I'm gonna go to a bar the day that this thing breaks, and it's like you'll probably get infected then. So it's like just be careful and just make sure that you're watching. Yeah, yeah.
Pace yourself. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really excited for things to open back up, but I also know, we
Yeah.
could see
Well, they're even
another.
talking about like in the fall, probably having like another month in the fall, then that we go back into quarantine, basically, where it's just
It's so crazy not really knowing what's going to happen. But like you said, we're all in this together. And I know other girls are training for shows, and we're all in the same boat. Some have more equipment at home than others, but it's still not quite the same. And you just have to do the best that you can with what you have. And those of you that, you're on a fitness journey, just get up and move. I just encourage you, get up and move every single day. It may not be exactly what you had planned or as much as you had wanted, but your body will be so thankful if you just get up and move around.
absolutely. And one of the last questions that I love to ask, because especially in female bodybuilding, it's a thing that applies more to that than male bodybuilding. But with female bodybuilding, it just seems to be such an embraced community where the competitors really do generally care about each other, and they do generally, I mean, just get along so well. And it's a rarity in sports that you see that. I mean, even looking at some of these Instagram posts where you have fellow competitors, they're just saying, oh my god, you look amazing, keep it up. You don't find that in that many sports. How important is that for you to know that, I mean, those people that you're stepping on stage with, they really do care about you and have your back?
Oh gosh, it's a sisterhood. It really, really is. I've only competed in the fitness division, but I've seen it in other divisions too. But speaking specifically for mine, we are a sisterhood. We check in with one another. We message each other all the time. We reminisce on funny times backstage. I mean, if you could see us backstage, we're kind of goofballs
Well,
with each
first of
other.
all, I gotta say, don't go backstage because you will not like the smell. I gotta say that you can't wear deodorant with anything. That's the one thing I say. Don't go back there for anyone who's thinking about that. I was like, just let them get through with the routine and have them take a shower or something like that afterwards.
Tanning
Then you can
isn't
go and say
always
hi.
the best smell. The tanning stuff doesn't smell the greatest, but we just have such a great time with each other. And so as much pain and suffering as you're going through during a prep process or a specific workout, you've got people that you're going to meet there and that you're going to bond with because you all did it together. So that's why there's that bonding experience. We know what every single other person went through to get to where you are in that moment.
Yeah, and it's again, yeah, if joint suffering, I mean, you always if you know what the other person's went through, I mean, you're tended to more form a bond, and yeah, it's that's one thing that I really enjoy, and that's why I love having female bodybuilders on too, as well as male bodybuilders, just because that is one thing that I think is so positive about the sport. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, what are some goals that you'd like to have achieved? Where would you like to be at in your fitness journey and just your average overall life? What would you like to be at a year from now?
That is such a great question because it's so hard to know exactly because I would have never thought I would be in this position today, even just a year ago. A year ago, I was coming out of a pretty big abdominal surgery, so I had to
Well, I
have.
gotta say, first of all, if you had predicted a global pandemic a year ago, that would be really strange too. If you're like, I'm gonna be in quarantine a year from now, so yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully we're not in quarantine anymore. But I've done. two pro shows now. And so I just would have never thought that that would have happened 1 year ago or 2 years ago. I would have never predicted this. So that's just amazing. Of course, Olympia coming up. So I can't wait to just be on stage at Olympia. I'm going to just be honored and humbled to be on the stage with all of the women that are up there. I've looked up to them for a couple of years now since I've started bodybuilding. So that's going to be amazing. And after that, I'm not sure. What I've told myself and talked to my boyfriend Jason about is I want to get through Olympia and then really sit down and reevaluate things because I'm 38 and I eventually want to, have a baby and that sort of thing. So we've been talking about those kinds of things in the future, but I'm going to reevaluate things after Olympia and then go from there.
Again, I'm gonna need to see some ID because I don't believe that she's 38. Everyone, so that's just no. I mean, and that's so great, and we wish you nothing but the best on that. And yeah, I mean, it's trying times, but yeah, a year from now, if we are still in quarantine, that will be an interesting story. But I'm on the positive side where we will get through this. But yeah, and again, it was so great to have you on. And the last question that I ask every guest is for anyone out there who's listening to this, who's not really into health and fitness, but is interested in adapting a more healthy and fit lifestyle. Not even during this quarantine, but just in the average day when hopefully we get back to normal. What advice do you like to try to give people? Because I bet you do hear that all the time. It's like, oh, I want to get started, getting healthy and strong. What advice do you like to give people just to get their first foot in? Because I always find that for so many people, that first step is the hardest. And once you walk into a gym, it's very hard to walk out without getting a workout in.
It is, yeah. So just when you take that first step, or if you want to take that first step, whether it means you just want to get fit, like you're starting a health and fitness journey and get in shape and see some progress that way, or whether you want to get into competing, either way, my top piece of advice is always to find someone that can help, whether it's a personal trainer or a coach for specifically bodybuilding or competing. So find a trainer or find a coach. And there's so many locally that you can find, but there's also so many remotely that you can find now. So you can go online and find a lot very reasonably priced, and people want to help. That's what they want to do. And so that's what I recommend doing, because then you're going to have some guidance along the way. You could walk into a gym and you could get lost. And I hate that feeling of, someone walking in, not knowing what to do, and then they want to walk out. So get someone that can help you find a plan that's going to work for you.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. A lot of people try this themselves and then they overwork themselves and they last a week and then there's like, oh, I'm too sore. I can't do it anymore. So yeah, getting that guidance is so vital. But lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh God, yeah. So Underground Performance, that's who I want to give a shout out to. That is my gym. I say my gym, it's really my second home and my second family. So I want to thank them all for all of their support through this entire journey and every step of the way. And then also Trish Warren, that's my coach. So thanks for all of your help. You rock, and I can't wait to keep going.
And again, you guys, shout out to all those, and I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below, and everyone can go and check out her stuff. A little bit of a warning, though, you will get inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies, so, just be prepared. But again, Katie, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story, and I mean, like I said, just looking out the window right now where it's, I'd trade your weather for my weather any day of the week, but again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys for having me, and happy quarantine time, I guess. Right?
Well, absolutely too. And I was gonna say, at least we got Easter coming up in 2 days, so we got something to enjoy at least during this quarantine. But yeah, everyone out there, stay safe. I mean, I've seen too many people walking within, like a foot of each other, but hopefully they're quarantining together. But yeah, it's like people just stay safe, make sure that you don't spread it, because like I said, people like me, if we get it, rarely will I ever even need to go to the hospital if I get it, but you got to worry about the other people that you're living with too.
All
So
right, we're in
everyone,
it together, so stay safe, guys.
absolutely. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.